Thanks everybody for joining us. I'm Joel McIntosh. I'm the publisher at Proofrock Press, and the subject today is the Jacob's Ladder reading series. I wanted to first say I'm incredibly grateful for you showing up for many of you after the long school day. Both the presenter that I'll introduce in a moment and myself have been classroom teachers, and I know that this is your time to regroup at the end of the day. And I'm genuinely grateful that you're here. Let me give you an overview of the interface. This is the Zoom interface. There is a little Q&A box down at the bottom, and if you'll click that Q&A box, you'll be able to ask questions. One of my editors, Stephanie McCauley, is going to be here with us, and she will answer any questions that might come up during the conference. So feel free to use that Q&A box to pose questions. Also, if you have questions for our presenter, you can also put them there. Stephanie will try to answer the questions that have to do with, like, how do I order the product and that sort of thing. But then the presenter can answer questions about the content of the Jacob's Ladder book. So the objective of this webinar, we want to introduce the Jacob's Ladder reading series to you. Want to meet a little bit with one of the folks involved in professional development regarding the Jacob's Ladder series, and give you a chance to see ways that the Jacob's Ladder series is being used in the classroom. Before I introduce the speaker, let me share a little bit about the Jacob's Ladder series and what it is composed of. So let me pull up my little keynote here and kind of walk you through some of the pieces of the Jacob's Ladder series. So the Jacob's Ladder series starts out as originally as a Jacob Javits gifted education research project, looking at how to increase reading skills among students in Title I schools. So the first group of the original Jacob's Ladder books were funded by the federal government in terms of development and the research that showed it works very well with developing advanced reading skills with kids in schools. Later on, the original authors, Joyce Van Tassel-Bosca and Tamara Stambaugh, added to some early years. So we start with K, and then we added some later years. So we run all the way through 8. So that's this first group here. The original series now spans K through 8. We then added an affective or social emotional Jacob's Ladder. So all the readings in this series are focused on social emotional issues. We got more grades coming. Right now we just have 4, 5, and 6, 8, but we've got lots more coming down the pipe. Then we also, when Common Core came out and wanted more nonfiction readings, we took up the baton there and added some purely nonfiction reading so that kids are doing higher level thinking about nonfiction readings. And then finally, we've added recently, sorry about the pixelated image, but we've recently added student workbooks. These are basically blown up versions of the student pages in the teacher edition. They are optional. You don't need to purchase them. They are just for schools that don't want to have a lot of photocopies and that sort of thing. It's just an economical way to get the student workbooks in the kids' hands. We don't even sell these through Amazon or through other resellers because we priced them so that we don't make a lot of money on these. We lose money if we sold them through Amazon. So they're just available from our website for those districts that would like to add those books into their repertoire. Now let me introduce our speaker for today. So let me end my sharing here, and I'll introduce Ashley Carpenter. She is an assistant professor at the College of William & Mary. She's director of professional development and publications there. She received her doctoral degree from the University of Connecticut, and she was a former middle school teacher. So she's got a lot of classroom experience and a lot of experience with the Jacob's Ladder series. And we wanted to bring her in and talk a little bit about the series. Take it away.
Thank you. All right, I'm really excited to be here, and I'm sorry if I'm dark because it's in Williamsburg. The sun is starting to go right in my window. I'm going to share my PowerPoint here, and if you have any questions along the way, just go ahead and type those in. All right, I hope everybody can see my screen okay. All right, so today we're working with Jacob's Ladder. And again, my name is Dr. Ashley Carpenter, and I am the Director of Professional Development. Pretty much it's my job to run all of our conferences. And if any school districts are using any of our curriculum, including Jacob's Ladder, but we also have science units, language arts units, social studies units, and math units. If they want professional development, that I help set that up, and we help your district to implement those. So talking about Jacob's Ladder today. So what is it? It really is a supplemental reading program that targets comprehension skills in high ability learners. And it does that through these things called ladders. And these ladders really, they move the students from lower order thinking skills to higher order, more critical thinking skills. And they use different readings. So the readings have, again, myths, fables, short stories, essays, and poetry. So these ladders, as you can see in this slide, go A through D, and they start at the bottom with the most, basic understanding of reading comprehension, and then it moves the students up the ladder and then up to the next ladder, and it really helps the students learn those critical thinking skills and to critically analyze those texts. So if you start with ladder A, the students are doing things like cause and effect and sequencing, really want to focus more on consequences and implications. And then as they move to the next ladder, they're working on details, classification, generalization. Ladder C, they move up to, inferences, themes, concepts. And then ladder D, really getting into those higher level synthesizing, summarizing, paraphrasing. So there's an example of what a ladder would look like from the book, and you can see that it does look like a ladder. So mentally a ladder and physically a ladder for the students to work up. This is really designed to meet that scaffolding piece that teachers really want. So, we're all told we're supposed to be teaching higher order thinking skills and critical thinking, but how do we go about doing that, right? It's really easy for our administrators and people to say, teach higher order thinking skills, ask high level questioning. Okay, so how do we do that? This really spells it out, and it walks students really up the ladders, starting at a lower level and moving up using the same text. It's really easy to differentiate reading instruction for those students using the ladders. And again, you don't have to use every ladder, right? You can switch it up. So we have some districts that use this in cluster groups. So they have a cluster group. If you're not familiar with that term, it's where you have a regular ed classroom and you might have 6 to 7 higher ability or gifted students in that classroom. And they need, curriculum or instruction that is above or beyond the other students. So this would be an easy way to add that higher level thinking or extra to those cluster group of students when the other students are working on remediation. We also have groups that use it in a pull-out program where they pull out their gifted students for 1 hour a day. This, again, it's supplemental, so it doesn't have to connect to whatever the regular classroom teacher is working on, so it's easy for those gifted teachers to use it there. We also have groups that are adding this to their whole group or teaching it to the whole group and using it as a supplement to their regular grade level curriculum. So there are 7 levels in this series right here that I'm showing. Joel talked about, some other sections. They do go K to 8. They can be used in different grade levels depending on your student's ability. You don't just have to use 3rd grade, the level 3 with 3rd grade. You can base it off your student's needs. It has been used successfully with gifted learners, advanced learners, and promising learners. So there is a research base behind this. Some original studies from the Javits. The teachers reported more in-depth student discussion and personal growth in the ability to ask open-ended questions when reading while using Jacob's Ladder. Students made significant gains in reading comprehension and critical thinking compared to the control group. And students who used the series showed significant growth in determining implications and consequences, making inferences, outlining the themes, generalizations, and applying that creative synthesis. And students also reported that, it made them think harder, which is really our ultimate goal. So here's an example of an organization of one of the units. It starts with the teacher's guide, and then you have the reading and the ladders. So the readings, include short stories, poetry, nonfiction. Each story or reading has 1 to 2 ladders that go with it. There are some appendices. There's a pre and a post assessment with rubrics and exemplars for you to grade. There's record keeping forms. So there's a brainstorming form, which I'll show you, an assessment response form, a reflection page for students, and classroom diagnostic forms. Joel had talked about how that there's the class set now that those forms are within each student guide. There's answer sets, so you can look at what an exemplar response looks like what is a 0 on the rubric, what is a 3 on a rubric, and then there's the Common Core State Standards alignment. So the time to implement, which is what a lot of teachers really want to know, is how long is each one going to take? Well, it really does vary depending on your classroom, your students, and your level of discussion. So most ladders take about 12 to 15 minutes to read the text, so that's the short story or the poetry or whatever the reading is, and an extra 20 to 25 minutes to read, or 20 to 25 minutes to read that nonfiction, and then the ladder itself, so the students going in and answering the questions and going through, and is about 20 to 30 minutes for one ladder individually. But if you're going to use discussion, it adds more time. So many teachers use a minimum of 2 class periods a week are needed if you're going to do 1 text and then 2 ladders. Again, if you have really in-depth discussions, it could take longer. So here would be your plan. If you're going to go through, you always want to pre-assess. Use the rubrics and exemplars to grade those pre-assessments and document where each student is on each task. Then you go through, and there's chapter 1 typically might be a short stories chapter, 2 a poetry, 3 nonfiction. In the upper grades, chapter 4 might be essays and speeches. And then if you're at the end, if you want to do the independent project, again, synthesizing, creating their own things, and then the post assessment. So it's just one example. So the pre and post assessments are really important because they provide you some diagnostic and prescriptive approaches. This way it can help you to differentiate for your students. And it should be the first thing that you'd use. You can keep these assessments in your student portfolios, and it can show how students have grown. This is really good for documenting. If you're using this curriculum and it's not necessarily prescribed by your district, that you can show, that your students are growing. Then you would go into teaching, a lesson. So a typical lesson would be with, again, 1 text. You'd start by reading the text aloud or begin the text and hook the students if it's the first time you've ever used it. Then the students are going to do a brainstorming answer sheet. So they're going to do the ladder for each text, which again sets a specific set of questions that goes up with each question on the level of thinking needed. Students jot down their ideas or their questions about the text as they read. Then you're going to ask students to list any new words or words they used in unusual ways. Then you have your discussion. So you can do this in a dyad, so pairs, triad, or 3, or in small groups, or you can do it whole class. Then you could, there's a reflection page included that you can have the students record their reflections for how it went. And then after modeling with the students, you can also have them work on this independently. So after you would go through 1 or 2 texts and examples of how to use the ladders and how to use all the different forms, you can have them work more independently after that in those cluster groups, or if you need to go switch around from different group to group. So things you might want to consider when you're implementing this is we recommend that teachers model each template provided or the handouts prior to just assigning them. This is not something that you're going to want to just hand the book to the students or hand the worksheet to the students. This shouldn't be used independently without modeling these things first. But as they build these skills, the students can complete the task ladders in pairs or in small groups, which does help with collaboration, and it helps with discussing these stories and engaging in higher level thinking. We also recommend that you provide feedback for the students, probing questions. You want to encourage multiple responses. You want to, help to encourage that dialogue. You want to make sure you're highlighting different perspectives. You want students to justify their answers with evidence from the text. And as you go through this process, the students will learn how to do it as you model. And then if you'd like to have them do it more in groups independently, they'll be doing that as well by themselves. So here's one of the reflection feedback record keeping sheets that comes with it. So this is the brainstorming answer sheet. There's one for each ladder, and it's for students to record their thoughts independently prior to discussing with a partner. So again, either they read the text independently or you read it as a class, and then each student is going to answer those questions on the ladder in their brainstorming sheet before you go to the discussion portion. Here's an example. This is the reflection sheet. So after completing both the ladders and you've had the discussion, they can answer with their reflection. So what I did well, what I learned, any new ideas I have for discussion, and next time I need to. This is really important in looking, having them think about their thinking. We really want to promote metacognition and thinking about, what did they think before? What did they think after? What changed their mind? What new skills did they learn? This is an assessment response form. It can be used as an answer sheet for any ladder. The student can self-assess, and the teacher can also assess on the same form. So you'll see here it has scoring for needs improvement, satisfactory, exceeds expectation. There's student comments, there's teacher comment area. This is good for record keeping. And here's an example of a classroom diagnostic form where you can record the student's name and how they scored on each ladder for each story. So let's get into the ladders. What exactly do the ladders do? So here are the different levels. They start with A, and you can look in A, again, sequencing, cause and effect, consequences. Ladder B, details, classifications, generalizations. Ladder C, literary elements, inferences, main idea, theme, or concept. Ladder D, paraphrasing, summarizing, creative synthesis. Ladder E, understanding emotion, expressing emotion, using emotion. And ladder F, planning and goal setting, monitoring and assessing, and reflecting. So I'll give you a little bit more in-depth on a few of the earlier ladders. Oh, there we go. So here's ladder A. For example, letter A, rung 1, sequencing. So after you read a story, organize a set of information in order based on your reading. Then moving up to cause and effect, think about relationships and identify what causes certain effects and or what effects are brought about because of certain causes. Then 3, consequences and implication. You really want to focus the majority of your time on the top of the ladder. You don't want to focus the majority of time on sequencing. We want to get to sequencing, but we really want to use the sequencing to say, okay, well, because of those order of events, right? What happened because of those events, right? So think about the short term, think about the long term, and why, what's the result of that? So moving these children up in their critical thinking. So here's an example from 3rd grade, The Ant and the Dove, by one of Aesop's fables. So again, sequencing, list the events in order as they occur, cause and effect. There are several cause and effect relationships in the fable, complete the chart outlining causes and effects. And then consequences and implications. What are the overall consequences of the dove's actions? Moving to B. So ladder B would deal with details. You might list examples or details of what they read or what they know from the real world. Moving up to classifications and then generalizations. Again, with the ladder, you really want to focus the majority of the students' thinking and time up on the top level or making generalizations. So use the lists and categories to develop 2 to 3 statements that apply to all of your examples. Here's an example from 4th grade. List 25 ways Arkney's life might change now that she's a spider. Using the list you created from B1, categorize the changes you listed, and then what generalizations can you make about change based on your list and categories. Okay, moving on to ladder C. So again, starting with the least critical thinking, identify or describe settings or situations which the reading occurs. Develop an understanding of a given character by identifying those qualities he or she possess and comparing those qualities to other characters. Then making inferences. Then state the main idea, the theme, the overarching concept of the reading. So this is an example from 5th grade. I Hear America Sing. Use a graphic organizer to describe Americans, including in the poem. Make a list of characteristics of Americans according to Whitman. And then what big idea do you think the author wants readers to learn from the poem? Why did the author tell the story? Write a paragraph supporting your opinion. Okay. So then ladder D, really the students are taking what they have and they are owning it, paraphrasing, summarizing, and then creating something. So in a lot of the units, you could use this as their own creative product. You could use it for them to do some research, find out what they know, and then extend it. There are some concluding activities that you can use at the end of a unit. Write a persuasive essay, create a symbol to show the meaning of the story, write a letter for the author's point of view, pretend you're an illustrator, create a drawing for the story or poem that shows the main idea, theme, or concept. Okay. All right, so our recommendations on grouping. We recommend that you initially use this as a whole group activity so that, again, that you can model it, you can coach, you can provide feedback, and the students really understand how to go about this process. Then the students can work independently, or you can use partners, and then they can discuss within their group. The dyad or pairs approach provides the maximum opportunity for students to discuss the readings and collaborate. And we always recommend like ability groups for these discussions. You don't want, one of your higher level readers and your lower level readers to be paired together. We really want them working with their ability peers. Some ways that you can help foster these discussions are to ask some probing questions. That's interesting. Does anyone have any different ideas? What makes you say that? I heard someone say that they thought that poem or story was about blank. What do you think, right? And always ask for students to justify their answers using the text. So one of the great things about Jacob's Ladder is that each story and the ladders can stand alone. They don't have to be done in order. They can be chosen because of an ability level of student. If you have, if you have a few students that need extra enrichment, that they can use this. Or if you have a student that's behind, they're not going to miss something because they miss one of the stories. So it really is, it's very helpful for differentiation. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was that we at the Center for Gifted Education do provide professional development, and we provide a couple different things. And if you're interested in that, you can email me at aycarpenter@wm.edu. We also have our website, www.cfge.wm.edu. All of our curriculum units are up there, and we go around the country literally every single week providing customized professional development for districts. Really from anything from the basics of gifted education to our curriculum units to differentiation to twice exceptionality, social emotional needs. So we really do it all. So if that's something that you would like to do, or if you want us to send a trainer out to do a 2-day training on Jacob's Ladder, we just did one in Tennessee 2 weeks ago for a district, then please, get in touch with me and I'd be happy to set that up for you. All right, do we have any questions? Let me look.
Everyone's very quiet.
Oh,
we got one.
All right, so the first one is, do we have math? We do have math. units. I think, Joel, if they just search, I think Center for Gifted, right? All of our units come up.
Yes, I tell you what, let me take control of the
Sure.
sharing real quick.
Mhm.
And let me share this with the folks. Let me go over here. So if you do go to the Prufrock Press website, just because we're doing this webinar, I created this special category for the Jacob's Ladder series. I did want to share, I didn't mean that you can get the Jacob's Ladder, the teacher books from Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever you buy books. The only thing that we only have directly from Prufrock are these student workbooks for the reason that I shared. But we also have our math curriculum, as well as if you go into the advanced curriculum, we can find all of the William and Mary units, and that'll include the math units that the college has done as well.
Mm-hmm. Somebody also said, do you have, I'm a homeschool. So we do have a lot of parents that do homeschool, and this would be a great resource for homeschooling. Again, it walks you through the critical thinking questions that teachers even have a hard time, you know, a lot of people are really good at asking the questions of remembering or just understanding, but we kind of blank when thinking about those higher level thinking skills or higher order questioning. So this spells it right out for you. There's even rubrics so you can see what a good answer would be. So this would be great. It really is self-explanatory. You can open the book and do exactly what it says to do. One of the questions is, can I download these slides for my notes? Joel, could we make the PowerPoint available in a PDF form?
Yes, that's a great idea. I want to do two things. One is that I am recording this, so I will send out to anyone who's participated a link to the video if you want to watch it again, and we'll also send you a link to a PDF of the presentation as well.
Okay, yeah. The presentation, the original presentation, I used one of our trainers, Mary Ann Yednick, had just gone out to Tennessee and done Jacob's Ladder, so I used some of her slides for that. So we don't like to give out the PowerPoint itself, but we're fine with giving out the PDF. So let's see. Yeah, do I have any recommendations for social studies and science curriculum? Well, we do offer both. We have our science curriculum through Prufrock Press. Our lower level, it's called our Clarion units for K4, I want to say the fifth, nope, K to 5. So we have quite a few of those. We do have some other units through other publishers as well. If you'd like a complete list of every single thing we've developed here at the Center for Gifted Ed, you can always go to our website, and it does link back to, like, Prufrock for whatever the unit is. I have a link to the publisher itself. So let's see. How long would it take to get through one story, one fable, or poem? So approximately, let's see, depending on, probably 10 to 15 minutes for a smaller fable or poem, and 20 to 25 minutes for a story. And then probably about 45 minutes for a ladder, depending on discussion. So again, if you're using it for a whole classroom, that discussion, you guys know, discussions, especially with gifted learners, can go on and on and on and on and on. So I know with my gifted students, we could discuss things for probably 2 hours if I didn't rein them in. If you have one child, obviously you and your child at home are gonna not take as long. So probably 2 class periods for a story in both the ladders if you're working in whole group and pairs. And okay, we already talked about, will you?
And maybe one more question, Ashley,
Okay.
and then we'll.
Oh, there's what they're asking, if you could share some information about that social emotional ladders book.
Yeah, I was going to mention the best way to look at that material is if you go to our website and go to that product page. If you click on the look inside the book, you can see examples of the readings that we are working with there, as well as the kind of questions that kids will grapple with. So the best way to do that is just literally go look at the product pages, because there's enough content there that you'll get a sense of it.
Okay, so the recording will be up after, so you can, somebody said they walked away and they didn't get a chance, so you can, again, it'll be put up on the website. The last thing, someone said, if the group as a whole is stuck on one part of the ladder, do you keep moving on? I would say no. I would say model it for them, scaffold for them, and walk them through it, because you can't go up the ladder. If they're stuck at a lower level thinking, they're not going to be able to go higher. So yes, do it as a whole class, or, you know, go sit with that child, the people who really are having some trouble.
Very good. Thank you. And Jennifer, I see your question. I'm going to respond off list about that. We may need to make an adjustment for you, but yes, I'll respond off that. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ashley. We sure appreciate your time. And if you have, we'll follow up with a link to the recording and a link to the PDF of some of the slides that Ashley discussed. And again, I'm grateful for you guys attending. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ashley. You guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you for having me.